Hello and welcome. In today's video, we'll explore the difference between power and force, as understood by David Hawkins. This concept has been around for a very long time, but is packaged in a way that is more easily understood by a modern Western mind by Hawkins. One of the most striking equivalents is a life in harmony with the Tao. In this state, one acts effortlessly and harmoniously with the natural flow of life. Like power, the Tao operates without force or coercion, reflecting an intrinsic strength rooted in truth and universal principles. In both concepts, there's an emphasis on subtlety and ease, where actions arise naturally without striving or resistance. Power, like the Tao, respects the inherent order of things, creating influence through harmony and balance rather than through control or domination. Both suggest that true strength lies in yielding and aligning with the natural flow of life. Understanding the distinction between power and force is understanding two completely different ways of operating and interacting with the human experience. It is crucial because it not only sheds light on human behavior, but also influences our approach to life and decision-making. Power and force are not merely abstract concepts. They have real-world implications that affect our personal lives, societal structures, and eventually and inevitably, sooner or later, the course of history. Power, in its truest sense, is inherently aligned with truth. It emanates from a higher plane of consciousness and reflects an inner strength that is unshakable and enduring, while at the same time flowing and effortless. Power does not rely on external validation or coercion. Instead, it is self-sustaining and self-referential. When we speak of power, we refer to the ability to influence or create change through a natural alignment with fundamental truths and principles. This type of influence is subtle yet profound, often going unnoticed because it operates without aggression or the need for acknowledgement. Power is characterized by calmness, resilience, and a deep-seated sense of integrity. It is the quiet drive that underpins great leaders, movements, and philosophies. Power attracts rather than repels. It draws people in rather than pushing them away. This magnetic quality of power comes from its authenticity. It does not seek to dominate, but rather to inspire and uplift. On the other hand, force is an expression of will that often comes from a place of insecurity or fear, from ego. It is aggressive, domineering, and seeks to control outcomes through exertion of effort. Unlike power, which flows naturally and is consistent with universal principles, force is turbulent and often out of alignment with these principles. Force attempts to impose its will upon the world, demanding compliance and often resorting to coercion to achieve its ends. The use of force is not sustainable. It depletes energy, creates resistance, and eventually leads to exhaustion or backlash. Where power is stable and enduring, force is fleeting and temporary. Force may achieve immediate results, but these are often short-lived and come at a significant cost, both to the user and those subjected to it. For this to not just be empty words, you need to use these concepts when you observe your behavior and the behavior of others. After a while, you will learn to recognize how someone's words and actions are dominated by one state or the other, and how they are related to an individual's level of consciousness. To recognize the presence of power in your actions, look for a feeling of lightness, effortlessness, and freedom from inner resistance, and you will see that you get a very different response from the world depending on which state you operate from. Again, it is important to recognize that these are two very real, distinct, objective states to operate from, even if we can use different terminologies in relation to them, and you can find them in different forms in most religious and spiritual teachings, even if Taoism was used as an example here. The difference between power and force can also be seen in their impact on others. Power, by its nature, respects the autonomy and dignity of others. It allows for free will, understanding that true change comes from within and cannot be imposed. Power fosters cooperation, trust, and mutual respect. It builds rather than destroys, creates rather than consumes. In contrast, force violates autonomy, often disregarding the rights and feelings of others. It seeks to overpower rather than to engage, to dictate rather than to listen. The use of force creates a cycle of resistance and conflict, as those subjected to it naturally push back against what they perceive as an attack on their autonomy and dignity. A key element of power is its association with love and compassion. Power does not separate itself from others, but rather sees itself as part of a larger whole. It recognizes the interconnectedness of all life and acts in ways that are harmonious with this understanding. Power seeks the well-being of all rather than the advancement of a few. This is why power is often seen as a unifying force, bringing people together under a common cause or vision. Force, however, is often driven by fear, anger, or a desire for control. It is exclusive, focused on self-interest and the pursuit of personal gain at the expense of others. This is why force often leads to division, creating an us versus them mentality that fuels conflict and discord. Another important distinction between power and force is their relationship with truth. Power is aligned with truth because it does not need to distort or manipulate reality to achieve its ends. It operates in harmony with the natural order, understanding that truth is the foundation of all lasting change. Power is transparent, honest, and open because it has nothing to hide. It does not fear exposure because it is grounded in authenticity. Force, however, often relies on deception, manipulation, and distortion of truth to achieve its goals. It may present a facade of strength, but this is merely a cover for underlying weakness and insecurity. Force cannot operate in the light of truth because it is fundamentally out of alignment with it. The long-term effects of power and force further highlight their differences. Power, because it is rooted in truth and aligned with universal principles, tends to have lasting positive effects. It creates a legacy that endures, as it is based on principles that are timeless and universal. Power builds structures, relationships, and systems that are sustainable and resilient. It contributes to the growth and evolution of society, fostering progress and development. Force, on the other hand, often leaves destruction in its wake. The changes it brings about are temporary and often lead to greater problems in the long run. Force may achieve short-term gains, but these are often outweighed by the long-term damage it causes. It creates instability, resentment, and conflict, which can persist long after the initial force has been withdrawn. Thus, power and force are effective guides when you try to figure out whether to get behind a particular course of action in the public sphere or not. This deserves to be repeated. Power and force are effective guides when you try to figure out whether to get behind a particular course of action in the public sphere or not. In examining the difference between power and force, it becomes clear that power is the more desirable and effective approach to creating change. While force may seem like the quicker and more direct path, it is ultimately unsustainable and counterproductive. Power, though it may, but not necessarily take longer to manifest, is enduring and creates lasting positive change. This understanding has profound implications for how we approach challenges in our personal lives, our relationships, and our communities. By aligning ourselves with power rather than force, we can create outcomes that are not only effective, but also harmonious, sustainable, and beneficial for all involved. To summarize, the distinction between power and force is one of alignment and intention. Power is aligned with truth, love, and universal principles, and seeks to uplift and inspire. It is sustainable and creates lasting positive change. Force, on the other hand, is often driven by fear, anger, or a desire for control. It is exclusive, unsustainable, and creates division and conflict. Understanding this difference can guide us in our actions, decisions, allegiances, and what we choose to give our attention, time, and energy to. Remember that these are two very distinct states. Force is characterized by a feeling of inner resistance, of having to struggle, compete, and fight for what we want, while force is characterized by a feeling of lightness, effortlessness, and that our interactions with the world flow smoothly without resistance.